Are you looking for an escape from manufactured truth wrapped in selfish agenda? Don't you just want to have a real and raw conversation, all masks and rules aside? That's what you're getting here at Titan Evolution Podcast. Get rid of all the nonsense information and discuss everything under the sun without filters. Listen to real stories of real people who will put your current perspectives to the test, guide you on living the life you truly want, and see everything free from judgment and pretenses. Time to get rid of those unhealthy environments and let your authentic self shine. Here are your hosts, Travis Johnson and Carol Carpenter.
Welcome to the show. I'm Carol Carpenter, and this is my co-host, Travis Johnson. We have a special guest today on our podcast. His name is Mark Timm. Mark is a serial entrepreneur and has started more than a dozen companies, several which have been multiplied and been sold. His businesses have been built in more than a dozen countries across numerous industries. Mark is also the best-selling author of Mentor to Millions. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being here, Carol and Travis. Thanks for having me on today.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely our pleasure. We got connected just like a month or so ago and hit it off. And I'm so thankful that you were willing to say yes to this. Mark disclosed right before we hit record that he did like a 3-month period where he did 250 interviews. And then he's like, that's it. I'm taking a break.
Done.
No more. Can't do another one. Got introduced to me. He's like, well, I can do that one. So.
And for that, we're grateful.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just Travis has a way of kind of sucking you into his genius and the message that he has for the world. And so I did take a break after 250. Both my co-author, Kevin Harrington, he was the original shark from Shark Tank. And we hit it hard promoting the book, Mentor to Millions. And then we said, let's take a break. And that break was extensive for both of us because we were worn out. So we very carefully and cautiously say yes. This was a heck yes, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad to be here with you guys.
Thank you so much. It's I've been reading the book and getting through there. I'm not quite finished, but definitely over 100 pages. And like, I don't like talking about books just in general because I want to, get to know you better. But like, it's so damn good. Like, like it is so good. The way that everything is framed and the discussions with Kevin and how it's implemented into your family, into your life, and you're so open and transparent about how all of that stuff unravels. And it's really refreshing to get to see a side of someone with your level of success that a lot of people just aren't willing to share. And it's greatly appreciated.
Basically, what you're saying is that you appreciate the fact that I admit to all the things I got wrong. Like, that's how the book starts out. The book starts out talking about me believing that I was doing the right things, which was business and finance, and I was preparing and I was providing for my family, only to realize that my business was getting my first and my best, and my family was getting my last and my least. And the entire book starts out with this, what I call driveway moment, where I'm sitting at the end of my driveway. Now, to appreciate this, I'm in my home right now. So this is my home. And I am a third of a mile from the road. So my driveway is so far away that you can't see the end of my driveway. So I can pull into my driveway and stop, and you can't see me. So that day, I pulled into my driveway and I stopped because I wasn't ready to go home. Now, the reasons for not going home, by the way, should be like I lost a bunch of money. I totally flubbed a deal. I missed a sale. I screwed everything up. But this day was a day that I did everything right. Out of 100 decisions, 99 were perfect. I made the biggest sale of my life this day. Everything went so well in business that I was sitting at the end of my driveway because I didn't want the feeling to end. And I knew that as soon as I got home, I was leaving a world of confidence and clarity and entering a world of chaos and confusion. And I didn't want it to end. So I sat there humiliated at the end of my driveway, knowing that the most valuable business I will ever own, ever operate, ever even be a part of was the one I was going home to, not the one I went to. But that's not the feeling I had. But when I realized that I could flip the script, change everything, and turn it on its head, and what if everything I did that day was practice so that I could crush it when I got home? That's when I hit the gas. I floored it. I went home. I ran in the door. I grabbed my wife. I took her to the bedroom where we could be quiet because we have 6 kids. Hard to be quiet in a house with 6 kids. I started spewing out all this stuff, and I told her I was going to legally incorporate our family. Now, looking back, she didn't even know what that meant. And she didn't know what a corporation was or how to legally incorporate it. And I'm legally incorporating our kids. And so she's like, wow, what's that look like? You know, I mean, what are you doing? But she saw purpose and passion. She saw confidence and clarity that she hadn't seen before. So she said, I'm in. So the next day, I legally incorporated our family. It's called To Be Timm's LLC. You can go on the registry of companies and find our corporation. My youngest child had the same shares that I had in this corporation. And every Sunday night, we started having shareholder meetings, and we started talking about the things that matter most. Why is our family on this earth, and what purpose do we have, and what impact can we have? And that's when everything changed for me. And when I realized that my entire life was warm up and the real game was happening at home. And that is really what the book is all about, is how you impact the world, how you live in this world and make the impact that matters most. And to me, the impact that matters most is at home. And so everything I learned from Kevin Harrington to Zig Ziglar, all of that was just preparation so that I could be the dad and the husband that I was supposed to be on this earth.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah. And I really like the fact that you said that you felt humiliated, because not a lot of people would share that moment, right? But to understand that you had been crushing it in business, and to know in that moment that you weren't giving your first and best to your family. I feel like a lot of people get there. A lot of people that have success in business, they find themselves at the top of whatever peak they're on, and they look around and realize that they're the only one there. And it's largely empty and lonely, and like, why did I work so hard to get here only to find that there was nothing here? Is that how you felt?
Do you know how many multimillionaires and billionaires die alone? I mean, they at the end of their life, they've made so much money, and there's nobody there with them at the end of their life. And that's not success.
No.
Because, I've met a lot of super successful people, like uber successful people. They have money that I couldn't even dream of. And do you know that they would write a check that is equal to their entire bank account to have the relationship I have with my kids? Because there's
Well, it
no
goes down
money.
to wealth being a concept and how you view wealth.
There's no amount of money that can buy a relationship. There's no amount of money that can buy, a phone call from your child that says, I need you. I need your advice. I need your counsel. See, here's the thing. If you get it right when they're under your roof, you get to be their dad or their mom for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Like, you're the first phone call. Like, Travis, I just want to be the first phone call. Like, I want to be the first phone call when they break up with their boyfriend or girlfriend. I want to be the first phone call when they find true love. I want to be the first phone call when they find out they're pregnant. I want to be the first phone call when they decide to get married. I want to be, if you get it right, you're the first phone call. And that's the lottery. Like the other day, the Powerball was $1 billion. I wouldn't trade $1 billion to be the first phone call. Like, give me $1 billion and my kids are completely estranged to me and don't call me when anything's going on in their life, I'm bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
I got all the money in the world and I have no meaning for that money. And so that's what I figured out. And I figured it out late. I was right before this phone call. I'm on the phone with a guy that's 37 years old. I'm 51. So I'm outing myself. And he's talking about how he's got, like, he knows how important it is to be a dad. And I'm like, look, dude, you figured it out like 7 years before me. Like, you're way ahead of me, because I didn't figure it out till I was in my 40s. But thank goodness I figured it out. And I figured it out right in the nick of time. And I started drilling wells, and I started planting seeds that developed deep roots. Now all my kids are grown. They're all adults. They're young adults. They're doing their own thing. They're in real estate and psychology and military and doing their own work. But ultimately, when they need something, I'm the first phone call. And that's what matters. And that happened back when I drove up the driveway and said, this is my most valuable business. This is going to be where I put my priority. Everything I learn out there is preparation for what I'm going to do here. And I brought everything home. I would go to a mastermind and take 2 pages of notes for my business and 10 pages of notes for my family. And I would go to a conference and I would bring for 4 years, I didn't take a single trip without one of my kids with me. 4 years.
Wow.
Like there was a huge whiteboard. It was 4 feet by 8 feet. And it was my schedule. And it was everywhere I was going, every trip I was taking, and it had a kid attached to every one of those. And that was where I wish I could say I could do it at home, but it was in hotels and plane rides and Ubers that I planted those roots. I developed those relationships that are paying dividends today. And so I had one of my kids, she was my middle girl. So she was the 5th of 6. And she was in public school. And I met Kevin Harrington. He's the shark from Shark Tank. He's famous. And we're in his home. And I get an email from my daughter who's sitting 6 feet away, not at our conference table, but at his kitchen table. I don't make a point of answering emails during business meetings like that. But I'm like, she's sitting right there. Why is she emailing me? And the email says, "Dear Mr. Timm, it's come to my observation that you're in need of a personal assistant. And I happen to know someone that is uniquely qualified to be your personal assistant. And it would mean a lot to me if you would entertain the idea of my employment." And so I sent that on to my director of HR because at the time I had a fairly large company that had HR. And so I had her go through that whole process. She had to create a resume. She had to go through the interview. And then at that time, I didn't really hire anybody. I had a person that hired everybody. And so she had to go all the way up through that person and then ultimately made it through that person. And mostly what I did is just like accept people that she recommended. So here she is sitting in front of me and her mom, totally like she was dressed to the nines and she was so professional. And I'm looking at her and going, hey, you've done amazing. Like, I'm so proud of you, but you can't be my personal assistant because you go to public school and that's just not possible. And she says, "Mom and I already talked this through and I'm going to leave public school. I'm going to take an online private high school so that I can travel with you full time." Over the next year, she went on 33 trips with me. 33 trips that she went on. She met dignitaries, she met Fortune 500 CEOs, she met celebrities, and her life was changed, but my life was changed because the relationship that I built with her could have never happened the way that it did. That is what it means to make your family your most valuable business. And so I look back and here I am today, and my relationship is still largely based on that year of her traveling with me. And I'm a pilot, I have my own plane. And so she started, I would say, "Oh, I'm so tired. Could you fly the plane for me?" Now we're 10,000 feet. Nobody panic here. Like no children were hurt in the filming of this podcast. And so, but I would let her take control of the plane and she would fly it. And at the end of the day, she loved flying so much, she became a pilot. So she is she's a pilot. She had her pilot's license almost before she had her driver's license. And so, but that was a unintended cool consequence of her traveling as much as she did with me. So there you go. Lays it out,
the lessons
Travis.
and the experiences you provided your children. Honestly, like I kind of wish that I was doing what I'm doing now and my kids were little, because my kids are also grown. The experiences they could have, like the ones you provided for your children, oh my God, it would have been invaluable for their future. I mean, I even had my son actually say to me, he goes, "Mom, why didn't you let me go to Chinese school?" And I go, "Excuse me?" Now, bear in mind that I actually kept telling him, "I want to enroll you in Mandarin." No, year after year after year. And you know what he said to me? And he's 26 now, right? He said, "You should have forced me." And I went, really? I go, I came from a family where everything was forced upon me. So that was the least, idealistic way for me to have a relationship with my child.
Carol, you don't want to hear this, but my oldest, I sent to China to learn Mandarin.
Uh-huh.
And so he spent a considerable amount of time in China learning Mandarin and martial arts. And so we talked before we started hit record here that I've got a brother from Hong Kong that is my age, my birthday, etc. But I sent him to China to learn Mandarin, and I felt so strongly about it that it really, yeah, it was thankfully he chose to go on this endeavor. But I get it. I hear you. I mean, I wish my kids would have done everything I recommended, but I did send one to
You got
Mandarin
one. You got one out.
Well,
I got one.
How did that go?
And martial arts. I think it was the martial arts actually that got him there, if you want to know the truth.
Okay.
But so I just read this in your book, like it didn't last, right?
Yeah. So that's I'm so glad you brought that up. So it didn't last because he's over there and he's learning Mandarin. So he's studying Mandarin and then he's studying martial arts. And he has this freak accident and he smashes his hand and breaks multiple bones in his hand. And so he's rushed off to this like remote Chinese hospital. Like it's
I feel for him.
Scary, like really scary.
No, I know.
And so, yeah. And so, I mean, it just, nobody can really appreciate how nerve-wracking this is, but it ended his program. And it actually was where, in the book that Travis is talking about, I fly over to China to get him. And he's so embarrassed and he's so devastated because he's disappointed me, right? He didn't finish the Mandarin program. He didn't finish the martial arts program. I have to go get him to bring him home. He's got this cast, his hand is all in a cast and it's all up to his elbow. And I'm like, okay. So I came up with this concept of what does this make possible? Like we can dwell on this and say this is a like life-ending injury and you're going to go back and you're humiliated. You got to go back to school and all this stuff. I said, you're already out of school. You already did all the work to get out of school. So what does this make possible? And what does this make possible? He decided to travel with me for 3 months. And he went to every mastermind I went to, every seminar I went to, every conference I went to. And this is the young man that literally has a real estate empire now in the county we're in. He's the go-to guy. He has sold multiple six-figure profit homes in the last year. He's bought the majority of a town that we live in, and he's 24 years old. But he would trace it back to that exact moment where he was embarrassed, he was humiliated, he was devastated. But instead of just sitting in his sorrow and crying in his tears, he believed, what does this make possible? And I want to give a lot of credit to my mentor, Zig Ziglar, because it was during this time frame that he started listening to Zig. Zig was my personal mentor when I was 19. He's one of the most amazing human beings. He impacted 250 million people. He's alive. Travis and I have had multiple conversations about Zig. So here is Zig. He's passed away. He's gone from this earth and he's impacting my son. And he's impacting him in a way that I can't. Like, I'm his dad, so I'm dumb. And only only a small fraction of what I have to say is relevant if it's not to do with food or lodging or technology or his phone. I don't matter, but Zig matters. And I introduced him to Zig, and Zig changed his life. And he helped me introduce this concept of, of what does this make possible? And what it made possible, if he had completed that program, he never would have went to the masterminds, never would have traveled with me, never would have went to the conferences I went to, and he wouldn't be on the trajectory that he is. And so when something bad happens to you, when something awful happens to you, you have a chance to say, that's it. That's the end. I'm done. I stink. I'm a failure. Or you have the opportunity to say, what does this make possible? And what it made possible for Marcus is he got this 3-month window with no school to travel with his dad, and he went everywhere. And one of the coolest things we did, by the way, Carol, is everywhere we went, anything we did, we never sat together. He had to go sit somewhere else. He could not sit with me. He could not hang with me. He could not be, attached to me. So he could go anywhere with me. And we sat on the plane together and we slept in the same hotel room together. But when we went to the conference, he had to sit somewhere else. He had to sit at another table. And I'll never forget, I think of this often. We went to this massive Zig Ziglar conference, like the most zigified ziggers in the world are all here. And I'm telling him he can't sit with me. And so Tom Ziglar, the son of Zig, is having this like really massive, important, like over the top business meeting with this other dude. And my son walks up to them and said, "Is this seat taken?" he sits down and he has no idea they're like negotiating the peace treaty amongst England and France or something, but it's like he just sees an empty seat, right? And he can't sit with me, so he sits down with these guys. And I'm like looking, and by the way, these guys have separated themselves like 82 tables away from the rest of us, so they're not anywhere near, like they're doing some business. They don't want to be interrupted, but he sees them, and somehow it just seems like a good idea to sit with them. And so even to this day, Tom Ziglar reminds me often of how Marcus just sat himself down in the middle of the most important negotiations that the Zig family has had post Zig's life, and just started eating his green beans and sharing dressing and all that stuff. But that's living life. Like that's just going for it. And that's what it made possible was meeting Tom Ziglar and meeting the people he was with and being present. The saying that I have that I want to share with everybody is, if you go to a raffle, like I grew up going to like county fairs and different events, and they would do raffles. But the thing they would tell you is you must be present to win. So that meant if you left early and your name was called, you're out, right? If you weren't sitting there, you didn't win. But that's life.
Mm-hmm.
Must be present to win. Like you got to be in it to win it. You can't be absent from it. You got to be present to win. And Marcus was present during those 3 months, and that's why he's crushing it today. So if he had not smashed his hand and ruined his Mandarin and ruined his martial arts, he wouldn't be the awesome entrepreneur he is today, because he was present and he won as a result of that.
So many times.
Well, I love that you made. Sorry, go ahead, Travis.
There's so many times we see those little road bumps or diversions or distractions or left turns or right turns, and we're like, my life is over. This thing that I was doing is all set and done. I spent last 22 years in the Navy, and when I was enlisted, I tried to apply for a flight position. And I remember getting a letter from the Naval Aeronautical Medical Institute, NAMI, which is a great term because if you don't make it, they call it the Nammy Whammy. So it's got a nice little ring to it. And I have this form. It's signed, it's dated, and it says that Travis Johnson is not physically qualified for aviation service. And that kind of letter can ruin someone. It can completely derail you. It can completely wipe whatever you're doing off the mat. It can crush a person. And I didn't use this letter to fuel me. In fact, I forgot it existed, because a few years later I applied for another program, and I went through NAMI in person and went through all the stations and all the things. And I got to the end, and the goal is to make it out the door without them calling you back for anything, right? Because if you make it out the door, you're good. You don't have to worry about this. This is flight school. I've got commissioned. I'm down in flight school in Pensacola, Florida, and they call me back, and I had forgotten about this letter that I had that says I wasn't physically qualified to fly. It didn't say why, it just said that I wasn't. And I got up and I was walking back. I was like, first I was crushed, like, oh, they called me back. Second off, I was like, did they find this letter that says I was no good from years ago? And they're like, dude, you got this letter. Like, we can't let you in. Like, what's the deal? And they sat me back down, and I'm getting ready to be crushed. And you can't see it on camera, but I have brown eyes, but I have this area of like a reduced pigment. And my mom has the same thing. It looks kind of like a white cloud on the edge. I say it sparkles or some nonsense, whatever I tell people. But like when you look at it, you're like, you can tell something's wrong, but like, does it affect vision? And that was their big question. They had me come back. I had to look at the eye chart and run through all this stuff. And the doctor, first thing he says is like, I understand that we called you back and you might be a little nervous right now. I was like, oh yeah, it doesn't show like your sweat pouring off me. My flight suit is like half soaked. Like, oh, does it show? And they're like, oh, you can't tell at all. I'm sure they could, but I was like, yeah, we noticed this thing and we wanted to see how it affect your vision and stuff. And make a long story longer, I got out of there without a hitch, got approved to go fly. But that letter could have completely crushed me, could have completely derailed me. If you're listening to this right now, you have a letter like that, or you have a word from a parent or a loved one that says you're not enough, that you can't do it, that whatever, you can't do the thing, whatever it is, like you have that thing. There's a letter, there's a comment holding you back from whatever it is you want to do. I'm going to tell you right now, whatever that letter is, it's garbage and it doesn't dictate your future. And you can choose to live the life that you want to live, be the person you want to be, and write the next chapter of book, regardless of what that letter says.
What does it make possible?
Very true. What I love about your story, though, is the fact that you wouldn't let your son sit with you, because he can't be uncomfortable and really learn about life if he's sitting with you, because he's sheltered by you at that point. And I love that you made him go somewhere else, have an experience of his own, walk a different walk than you're walking, because if he was in your shadow, he would forever be able to, get into these rooms, do these things that you do. And here you're saying, nope, go over there. Can't hang out over here. I love it.
Here's the funny thing. At 24, I'm so proud of him. And now when we go places, I want him to sit with me, and no chance. Like that boat has left the station. That flight is taken off. Like, here I am now. I'm like, hey, son, sit with me. He's like, no, I can't do that. I got to sit over here. I got to go do all of this.
You conditioned him.
Yeah, totally conditioned him that you can't sit with dad. And so anyway, but it's cool that he's so comfortable to not be with me. And I love that, because then there's those times that he calls and says, Dad, you got 5 minutes? That's my code word, by the way. So if you ever interact with me outside of this podcast, that's my code word. Dad, do you have 5 minutes? Because I believe that most meaningful interaction happens in 5 minutes, 5 minutes or less. It's not 50 minutes. It's 5 minutes. 5 minutes is all you need to give. And by the way, moms and dads out there, you always have 5 minutes. So 5 minutes, it's all you need. 5 minutes can change the life of whoever you're talking to. And so I actually pride myself. I don't even have my phone. Oh no, I got my phone. Here it is. So I try to answer my phone, and I have this 5 minute rule. And it is, I answer my calls, and I'm not going to answer the call here on the podcast with you guys, because you guys are awesome. But outside of you guys, like today, I've answered my phone all day. And it's so ridiculous, because most people are so shocked when I answer the phone, and they always go, oh my gosh, you answer the phone. And I'm like, of course I answer the phone. You're important to me. And they're like, wow, do you have time to talk right now? And I say, yes, I have 5 minutes. When I say I have 5 minutes, I've bookended the whole entire conversation. Like we're done in 5 minutes. I'm out of here. But yet on the same token, I've gave them the importance and the relevance in my life. They are important to me. I wouldn't have answered the phone if they weren't important to me, but I've given them 5 minutes. And so I actually think, like, there's a phrase I've called 5 minutes to freedom. And I went from never answering my phone and taking messages and being the guy that pushes the button, I'll call you back, or I'm busy, or blah, blah, blah. And now I answer the phone all the time, but I only do it for 5 minutes. And the crazy thing is that I did an experiment the other day where I answered every single phone call that I got. I got 15 phone calls that day. And every phone call, I did the 5 minute thing. Do you know that in those 15-minute phone calls, I tracked the time I answered it and the time I was done? Not one single phone call made it to 5 minutes. Most of them were 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and that was it. Because I told them I only had 5 minutes. And so it's direct to the point. They were important to me. I answered their call. I got taken care of what needed to be taken care of. And I never even had to get to the point of telling them, hey, we're at our 5 minutes. Now, here's the cool thing. I've been doing this it took me 2 years to get to this point. And so now when I'm in the car, I answer the phone call and I'm like, hey, I've got 5 minutes. I got someone really important that I got to talk to, in 5 minutes. But you're important to me. So let's talk. So at the end of the 5 minutes, I hang up the phone and my wife is like, hey, we've been driving for like 10 minutes and you said there was someone really important that you had to talk to in 5 minutes. Who is that? Are you calling somebody? I said, oh, it's you. And she's like, whoa, yeah, of course it's me. Who else would it be but me? I like it. Yeah, I'm the important person that you're talking about. Like, you do take all the calls you want to take for 5 minutes because I'm right here when you're done with the 5 minutes because I'm important. And so my wife went from hating every phone call that I took to being totally fine because I only take 5 minutes. And in those 5 minutes, I'm there for her. And she is important to me. And so I'm not lying when I say there's someone important, that I need to talk to, and it's her. So, so we can do this thing called life, and we can let life control us and run us over, or we can be in control of it and we can be present for the people that matter most. And we can be present often for those people, but they don't have to just consume our life.
Right. My boyfriend calls that showing up.
Showing up. I like it.
I gotta admit, I have a problem because I cannot do only 5 minutes with people. Like, I drove to Arkansas last week in the middle of the week to go see a friend open a hotel. It was a great experience. I'm glad I did it. I had a buddy in the Navy that was struggling a little bit and he wouldn't answer my call. So I texted him. I was like, hey man, I'm struggling. Do you have time? He called me right away. It's a trick to get your buddy on the phone. Tell him you're struggling.
I like that. I like that, Travis. Yeah. Well done.
Got him on the phone, but we were on the phone for 2.5 hours.
That's okay.
I crossed the border into Arkansas and I was like, I looked at my the timer on the call, 2 hours and 20 minutes away. Dude, I gotta go. Like, I know I got to talk to other people, but holy shit, 2.5 hours. Like, 5 minutes. I'm gonna have to practice.
And I'm not saying I don't have some long phone calls, but how cool is it to answer the phone and say you matter? Like,
yeah,
I'm answering your call because you're important to me. But life is reality, and reality is I've just got a few minutes, but you matter, and I'm going to give you those minutes. And I'm not going to call you back. I'm not going to text you. I'm not going to, I'm taking your call right now. And so that's 5 minutes to freedom. And it works for me. It may not work for everybody. I certainly have some. The other day, it was the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and I did exactly what you did, Travis. I made a list of 5 guys that I hadn't talked to in forever, and I called them, and there was no 5-minute rule at all. It was 50 minutes. It was 5 hours. I didn't freaking care. Like, it was whatever amount of time we needed to take, but it was way past due for us to chat. And I only got 3 of them of the 5. Admittedly, I didn't get 5 out of 5. I got 3. But some of those phone calls, like, I can close my eyes and I can just, like, they were long overdue and so necessary. So everybody's not a 5-minute phone call. But during the day, what if you could answer? This is my challenge. What if you could answer every single phone call that comes in and at least give them 5 minutes of your best undivided attention? That's the point. And then maybe the Saturday after Thanksgiving, you give them more.
You're right.
I don't know.
But only after the weekend after Thanksgiving. Only
right.
then.
I mean, only we preface this whole podcast with being incredibly honest and authentic. So there you have it. It's the raw and real hour.
I used to have this little sign on my desk that people would come in and they can complain for 5 minutes, but it had to be between the 50 and 55 of whatever hour it was.
Oh, nice.
So they came in with their problem, whatever it was, and they went into it. I was like, oh, you didn't see the sign. I was like, it's not time for that right now. And they're like, what? Wait, what sign? What do you mean? Like, yeah, it's 20 more minutes before you can come back and talk about this. Like, what? Really? I'm like, yeah, like, I have time for it, but I don't have time for it right now. And inevitably, whenever that would happen, they would jump in. Well, I just need this real quick. Perfect. I was like, you're welcome to come back in 20 minutes. And if you want to bellyache, whine, complain, whatever the thing is, I got time for it, but I don't have time for it now. And I had one guy of the 3 years that I did this that came back into the office that time. And like, I've been waiting for this, sir. I've been waiting for exactly this time. This is
right
my
now.
moment.
This is my 5 minutes. Don't interrupt me. It's my show.
Yep. He came in and let me have it for about 2 minutes. He didn't have 5 minutes worth. I was like, how you feel? He's like, pretty good, pretty damn good. I was like, how long you been planning that? He's like, for weeks. I've been wanting to do it just to say I could do it, because I didn't see that anyone else that came out of this office ever was like here during that time.
Awesome.
So Mark, I'm curious, how did you meet Zig Ziglar?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm a farm boy from Fillmore, Indiana. So I grew up on a farm. I'm the first generation off the farm. And I got involved in an organization called the Future Farmers of America. So we were the largest intercurricular organization in the country. And we took ag classes and we learned leadership, et cetera. And it's where I found my purpose. And I became the chapter president, the district president. I ended up becoming the state president, and I became the national president of the Future Farmers of America. And I'm on stage in Kansas City, Missouri, and I am the national president. And our keynote speaker that year was Zig Ziglar. And he walks up to me and he puts his arm around me and he says, son, I want to mentor you, but I need you to come to Dallas, Texas, and I need you to stay with my family. And I need you to be the best student any mentor has ever had. And if you're willing to do that, I'm willing to mentor you.
Wow.
I'm like, done. So I fly to Dallas, Texas. I stay with his family. His son and I are the same age. So I meet his family. I eat dinner with the redhead, which is his wife. And I did exactly what he said. And I became his best student. And as a result of that, he mentored me personally. So it wasn't that I met Zig Ziglar, I knew Zig Ziglar. He mentored me as a 19-year-old. He followed through with his commitment. But that's the coolest thing. So when someone says, I want to mentor you, the greatest gift you can give them is to be their best student. Like, don't just listen to their stuff and say, yeah, that's awesome. Maybe I'll get around to it. If you want to crush it in life, you need mentors. Like the book Mentor to Millions, we talked about this before it started. It's not about millions of dollars. It's about millions of people impacted. If you want to impact the world, the quickest way to impact the world and the biggest way to impact the world is mentorship. But first off, you have to find the right mentor. Then secondly, you have to be the right mentee. And being the right mentee means you have to be the best student that mentor's ever had. It's like, I don't know if you guys can see, there's a brick wall right there. You see that brick? Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. So bricks are they're awesome. They're strong and they're powerful and they're awesome. But if I stacked up a bunch of bricks, like a little 5-year-old could knock them over, because it's not the brick that gives it strength. It's the mortar between the bricks. So mentors give bricks. All right. They you know where those bricks come from? They come from failure. They come from hard lessons. They come from really tough journeys. That's why they're bricks. That's why they're forged in fire of failure. But they're just bricks. And so you give those bricks to the mentee. And if you're a brick collector, you're just stacking these bricks up and anyone can knock them over. They're meaningless because they're just bricks. But what makes the bricks a wall or a foundation or something that you can build on is the mortar. That's the concrete. What's the mortar? The mortar is when you as a mentee learn from your mentor and then you teach someone else. You see, that's the circle of mentorship. You must first have the right mentor. Then you must collect the bricks. But then to lock it in and make it something meaningful, you have to teach what you've learned to someone else. And when you teach to someone else, that's the mortar. That's what creates the foundation. That's what creates the wall. That's what creates something that you can build a business on, a life on, a marriage on, a family on, when you've locked it in. So if all you do is collect wisdom, if you listen to these podcasts, if you're listening right now and you're a brick collector, that's cool, but it's not going to build anything for you. But when you take what you've learned from Travis and Carol and you pass it on and you teach your kids or you teach your friend or you teach your colleagues, you lock it in, that's when it becomes foundational. And that's what happened with Zig. Zig taught me a lot of things. He gave me lots of bricks. I've got books to prove it. I've got signed books from Zig. I got lots of bricks that I can impress you guys with, but it wouldn't mean anything. And I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for the fact that I took those bricks and I taught other people and it became foundational. And that's how I have the house I have and the family I have and the friends I have and the relationships I have and the career that I have. And why I'm on this podcast right now is because of those bricks got locked in by me teaching other people what my mentor Zig Ziglar taught me.
Well,
you
wouldn't
talk
you
about-
think the basic foundation would be, it comes down to choices? Because in the end, you're talking about picking the right mentor, and that's a choice, right? You're going to be given a lot of mentors. It's choosing the ones that resonate with you.
Carol, I'm gonna go a step further because I love what you're saying. I'm smelling everything you're stepping in.
That's what you get when you're from
But-
Indiana, right?
Yeah, that's
What you're
exactly.
stepping in.
But I'm going to say this. When the mentee is ready, the mentor will appear. So,
Oh, that's
yeah.
powerful in itself. Yes.
Yes, there's choices, but ultimately the most important choice that you're going to make is to look at yourself in the mirror and say, am I ready? Am I ready to be the best student? Am I ready to implement everything my mentor tells me today, not tomorrow, not months from now? Am I ready to learn? Am I ready to change? Am I ready to pivot? Am I ready? That's really the choice. It's not the choice of the mentor, because I believe when the mentee is ready, the mentor appears. So the choice is, are you ready?
Ready. Yeah, it's true. I actually have mentors, and when I first started with them, they would give me things, and I wasn't on board. Like, I would just go, really? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me, right? They proved me wrong, because there was a certain point where I reached like this, that nothing's changing. Like, what's going on, right? And when I started listening, when I started implementing, everything they said was when everything changed.
You should write a book.
I already
Mentor to
have.
Millions. I'm just kidding.
Not your book, but
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, because that's the premise of the book, right?
Yeah.
If you want to really impact the world, you've got to have the right mentors, and you've got to implement everything they tell you. Even if you don't believe it, even if you don't think it's right, you got to implement it so you can go back and say, I tried this and this didn't work. Oh, sorry about that, guys.
That's all right. I was
I
going to
forgot-
say,
that's a wrap. I forgot to turn off my dinger. So
you talk a
all
lot in
good.
the
That
book about-
was really an exclamation point on Carol's main message there.
Ding. Absolutely. Absolutely.
that's a
You meant-
sign.
Yeah,
That's
it's
a sign. I like it.
You mentioned in the book, you talk about mentoring your children and incorporating your family and the importance of having mentees and mentors. And I got to ask, who are you mentoring right now?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go there in just a second, but the real question you should ask me is, who's my mentor? So I'm going to tell you that people ask me all the time, who should my mentor be? Who should I have a mentor? You should never have a mentor that's not being mentored. Like, if they've tapped out and said, you know what, I'm at the top of my game, I don't need a mentor, then trust me, they're not someone that should be mentoring you. And so I have always had a mentor since I was 19. I still do today. My mentor today is Bob Goff. He's a best-selling New York Times best-selling author, and he's an awesome dude, just doing his thing in the world and changing the world. And he really taught me to have my head on a swivel. And what I mean by that is that so much of life is happening around you and we just miss it. And so pay attention when you're in the grocery line, pay attention when you're stuck in traffic, pay attention when you're with your kids, pay attention when you're with your wife, have your head on a swivel and just constantly be present to win. He's the guy who taught me that whole concept, must be present to win. So that's my mentor. Who am I mentoring? I'm super selective about who I mentor these days, and I've got a couple guys, and right now I'm only mentoring guys. And I'm not sexist. I think women are
I
amazing.
wasn't going there.
The
She
world
totally
wouldn't
would've gone
exist
there.
without women. But where I'm at in life as a husband and as a father, I feel like the most value that I can give is to men. And so I've got a small group of men that I'm mentoring that really would like to follow a similar path that I followed, especially in business. I shared this before we got on. What do I do for like real? Like, what's my job? If you were to ask me that, I'm a professional board member. I'm on 8 boards. I serve in various different capacities on these boards. I'm on publicly traded companies, I'm on private companies. Most of the companies I'm on are private going public. Give me a couple years, I'll be probably all on public companies. And so there's some young men that I was on the phone with right prior to this podcast that is one of my mentees. And he would very much like to be doing what I'm doing, but I'm 51, he's 37. So he's got a little time. And so he wants to be mentored as to how could he be on boards when he's 50 years old or maybe even earlier. I think one of the greatest assets I have is the gray hair. If you're watching this podcast by video, I turned gray early, at least my beard did. And so because I'm the youngest board member by 10 years on almost every board that I'm on. So at least I have the gray hair to go with it. But I love what I do. I could see myself doing what I do for the rest of my life. And I hope I'm going to live another 50 years plus. And I see myself being on boards of companies for that next 50 years. This is my sweet spot. It took me 51 years to get here. I don't want to do anything else but this other than be a dad and a husband. And so, and I'm open to mentoring a very, very, very select group of men that are ridiculously all in to being the dads that they were put on this earth to being the husbands they were put on this earth to be, and to living out their profession the way that they were supposed to be. So it's a pretty tough criteria to become a mentee of me, but there are a few men that have traversed that mountaintop, and I'm working with them right now, and I'm excited to be doing that. So I won't name their names just out of confidentiality, but they're men, and they all have the same thing in common. They want to be the best husbands, the best fathers, and the best followers of the God that created the heavens and the earth that they can be. And when they are able to communicate that with confidence and clarity, then I can say yes.
Oh, I love
that.
it. By the
I love
way,
that.
gray hair, we call that sparkles. I'm a
Yes,
year older than you. So
I can't believe it, Carol. You look amazing. You are
Thank you.
you are
Well,
a
you know what?
testament
You
to
know what the
longevity.
secret is,
What
Mark?
is it?
Do what you love.
Do what you love. I agree with that. Well, my gray hair is pronounced and announced because it helps me in my profession.
You use it for your advantage.
I see 0 gray hair on you, my friend. So you're doing well.
It's showing. We're gonna go. We're gonna get the roots done here pretty soon.
Well,
So
she had to put the tinsel up for Christmas, so
whatever. You could have fooled me. I would have definitely assumed I was the oldest on this podcast, but there you go.
I tend to be the oldest everywhere we go, and Travis is usually the youngest.
yeah,
It's okay, Travis. You'll get there.
Even at 41, even though I served in the military for 22 years and been married for over 2 decades and have a daughter that's married, it's like, you're just a kid. You have to be in like the right lighting to see myself. Whereas I got a couple of streaks.
It's a good thing. Being a kid's a good thing.
It doesn't matter to me in the slightest. I don't care if my hair was purple. I am going to be who I am. I'm going to show up how I am, and it's going to be fantastic. You're going to be on board, or you're going to be like, you know what? I'm just not ready for Travis yet. Like,
age is just a number. I have to tell you, my young adult children. So I'm going to out myself and say that my wife and I have a physical trainer that comes to our house 3 days a week. And it was because we couldn't get to the gym, and just life afforded us the ability to do that. And she kicks our butt. She annihilates. But, my young adult children are like, Dad, what the heck? Like, you're strong. Like, you're really, and I'm like, it's all Piper. Like, it's all her. And so, but age is a number. It's not, it
is.
doesn't define you. And so I am stronger at 51 than I was at 41. And I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean that physically. I am stronger at 51 than I was at 41. And so,
Would you say not just physically though, but mentally too?
well, mentally, because of wisdom. Like, I've
Yeah.
got wisdom I didn't have at 41, and that's, yeah, I'm stronger in all areas. But sometimes when people say, "Oh, I'm stronger," they mean like metaphorically, holistically, I'm stronger. I mean, I'm physically stronger. Like, I can lift more, I can carry more, I have more stamina. Like, I'm physically stronger at 51 than I was at 41, which seems impossible, but it is possible, because it's all about just discipline. It's all about just putting your energy. I had this myth that you couldn't build muscle, beyond like 30 years old, and that's just a myth. Like, if you
What?
put the effort and the energy into it, somebody told me that you as a guy, like, the muscle you had at 30, you won't have any more than that. And but that's not true. It's totally not true. You can absolutely build muscle at 51 years old, and you can be stronger. And it gives you some pretty cool pep in your step when your 24-year-old son is like picking something up, and you're like going toe to toe with him. And he's going, Dad, what the what? Like, who is this man? Like, what the heck? And you're like, yeah, man, I work out. I'm doing my thing. So,
Oh my God, I love that.
don't
I've
let
got
the
a
gray
buddy.
hair fool you.
I've got
That's
a buddy that's
right.
like 3 years older than me, and I see him at the gym. I saw him at the gym yesterday morning, and he reminded me, just like he's got 5 kids, just how much work he puts in to stay in. He's always been in phenomenal shape, just amazing shape. And he was talking to me like he does 200 pull-ups and 200 push-ups every single day,
Yep,
Whew.
I'm tapped
every
out.
single day.
Yeah, he's got me on the 200 pull-ups. I'm not there.
Well, he's
Like,
like 6'4", 210.
I've done
Like,
I've done all the bragging I can do. No 200 pull-ups. No, nobody listening here has any misconception about Mark Timm. He can hang with his 24-year-old, but he cannot do 200 pull-ups.
he goes in the gym. He tells you, he's like, I just kill myself because that's the only way I can possibly stay young and keep up with my young wife and our 5 kids. Like, he's like, that's the only way, is because I come in here and basically beat on myself essentially daily. Is the only way he's able to do that. I've done the push-up thing before. I've done 200 push-ups a day, but man,
I have
have I
200
not got
push-ups. I
anywhere
can do
close.
200 pull-ups. No way.
Never close to 200 pull-ups. Never even sniff that.
Unless I've
Absolutely.
got the like 100-pound, helper on the underneath side. So, anyway,
Hey, Mark, I wanted to
even
ask you, what is something about you that most people don't know? I know you mentioned the FFA earlier, and I grew up in northern Minnesota. I knew what the FFA was, but I'm assuming a lot of people don't know that. What's something else a lot of people don't know about you?
Well, I kind of already said I was a pilot. That's usually my go-to thing. I am a pilot. I love to fly. I feel so at home in the sky, in the clouds. I mean, that's like there are divers that go under the water, and that's their like special place. And for me, it's in the sky. I just I love flying. I love everything about flying. I hope that God provides me the physical attributes, the eyes, the health to be able to continue to fly my whole life, because that's just that's where I want to be whenever I'm not on Earth. Whenever gravity wins and I'm standing here and sitting here with you guys, whenever that's not possible, I want to be in the sky. So that's kind of my big thing. Obviously, I've shared with you, I've got 6 kids, and then the other thing is, I love the Lord. I'm sold out on my faith, and why that matters to me. And without that, I don't think anything else really holds a candle. So that's probably the thing that I want to make sure that if somebody wants to know something about me, they know that my faith matters most, my family matters next, and my friends come after that.
Oh, I definitely love that. I remember when we first chatted, you told me that you used your your love of flying for good to help a friend out, and I really
Yeah.
appreciated that
Yeah, I'm
stuff.
still doing that. My dear friend is he's just battling cancer, like you can imagine. He's in Mayo in Minneapolis, and so I've been when we first talked, I was flying him up there and going up and picking him up, and so we're just waiting on the phone call to go get him. He's on his last round of chemo, and he's lost every hair on his body. He's this is the crazy thing. The kind of chemo he has, because he's it's such an aggressive cancer. The lady comes in a hazmat suit to put the bag on the IV. Like he's just sitting
Oh
dude,
my
right? He's
God.
just sitting there as a dude, and they've got the IV in, and this woman walks in with a hazmat suit to hang the bag, and that's what's going to go inside of him. And his wife can't use the same restroom as him. She has to wear gloves to touch his clothes. They have to wash his clothes twice. I mean, to say that they're pulling out the nuclear option is like the reality of his life. That's how intense his chemo is. And so we just can't wait to get him home. We love them so much. The world needs Carl Waterman in the world. I say his name not lightly, because he is such an amazing human being, and we need him in the world, and the world needs him in the world. So I just hope he's able to make it through this, and then I get the phone call that I can go fly and pick him up, get him
Oh,
home.
that's so incredibly kind.
Well, why have a pilot's license if you can't, and a plane if you can't fly up and get your friend from the Mayo Clinic? Like, hang it up if that's not what's possible. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what is possible is that. And he can't fly commercial. He has no strength. And like, when I fly up there, they wheel him out all the way to the airport. They help him get in the plane. Like, he couldn't do it any other way. Like, there's no other option that he has. And so if you can't be that only option for somebody, then that's where hopefully that's where everybody gets to in life, is that something you love becomes something that only you can do for somebody that matters most to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how. I've been podcasting for a couple of years, and I have no idea how to follow that ending statement. It's just so wholesome and complete. Like I can't. Like I don't have some story
Well,
that's like that. I
no,
can't.
I'm just gonna say that to everybody out there. So this was a 3-year journey. 3 years ago, I said, I just want to be available to the people that matter most to me. That's it. Like that's it. That's the whole goal. Whether it's professionally setting me up for that, whether it's family wise, I just want to be that guy that says yes instead of the guy that says no. And it took 3 years to get here, guys. So it wasn't an overnight snap your fingers. And this year has been my year where I've just been able to say yes. My mom got breast cancer, and she needs people to take her to her radiation. My dad had a spiral fracture in his arm, and because of the two of them, they moved in with us. Like, they live with us right now because that's the right thing to do. And Carl needs us to be able to fly him up there and go get him. And 3 years ago, I said, that's the guy I want to be. But I wasn't that guy, by the way. I was the guy that said no. And I felt bad about it. But I said no often because I was traveling all the time. I was, thank goodness for COVID. I'm one of the first guys that'll say, thank you, COVID, because COVID is what helped me pivot to be able to say yes, because I was the guy traveling twice a week all over the country. So I always said no. Every time anyone asked me, it was, I'm so sorry, but I'm going to Texas. I'm going to Florida. I'm going to California. I'm going to Canada. I'm going to Germany. I'm going here. I always said no because it was a no, because I wasn't there. And so I said, I want to be the guy that says yes. That's just who I want to be. And I don't know how to get there, but I'm going to try. And as a result of what happened in the world, I'm there. And now I get to say yes. When the people that matter most to me say, Mark, I need you, I'm able to say yes. And that's who I want to be. And I'm so thankful to be here. And that's where I want to stay.
Yeah,
I think you put the intention out there, and your intention was fulfilled.
Yeah, you said it in there that you knew what you wanted, but you didn't know how to get there, and you're willing to take the steps
Not at all.
regardless that you couldn't see the end of the path. And isn't that true in just about anything that we want to accomplish in life?
Everywhere. But here's the key: announce it to the world. If you're listening right now, and don't take my, intentionality, take your own, whatever it is you want to do, just put it out to the world, put it out to those that matter. I shared that with my wife. I shared it with my kids. I shared it with my friends. I didn't know how I was going to get there. I didn't even know what it looked like. I just said, I want to say yes. When people that matter to me need something, I want to say yes. And I just kept putting it out there. And then people helped me get there. And, and so I didn't do it alone. I have taken no credit of doing this journey by myself. But if you really have something laid on your heart and you're convicted, put it out there to the people that matter to you most, your friends, your family, your coworkers, whatever. Just announce it to the world and say, I don't know how I'm going to get there, but that's where I want to be. And they'll help you get there. Like, they'll be a part of your journey and they'll be step by step with you. So that's who I wanted to be. And a lot of people contributed to me getting here right now. And it's exactly where I needed to be. And I'm so thankful that for all of those people that contributed to that journey to get me to this point. And so when somebody that matters most to me says, Mark, can you? I just want to say yes. And right now I get to. And that wasn't always the case. In fact, the majority of my life, it has been a no. And now it's a yes. And I don't ever want it to be anything but a yes.
It's beautiful.
That is just wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Hey, Mark, if people want to get a hold of you, where do you want them to go?
MarkTimm with 2Ms.com. That's the best place. And so they can find me there. My super secret Batmobile email is mt@marktimm with 2Ms.com. So I've now totally exposed myself to the world. But marktimm.com, that's it. That's where I hang out. You can find me on social media at the marktimm.com, because supposedly there's another Mark Timm out there. I don't know who it is, but I've never met him. So I had to be the marktimm.com. So if you want to find me on social media, that's me.
See, you pretend like that's a tough thing to have one other guy. My name's Travis Johnson. You know how many Travis Johnsons are out there? Oh my God. All of them got their own website. All of them got their own email.
Your only way to find you is I am Travis Johnson and I'm serious.com.
That one's already taken. That was
Oh.
someone's like, well, use your middle name. Well, I can't use my middle name because my middle name is Dwayne. And Dwayne Johnson is The Rock. And he's also everywhere. So I can't do that either.
What's so funny is that there are other Mark Timms in this world. I've never met one. I've never met another Mark Timm, but there happens to be other ones. And someday I'll be at a stage in life where I'll go on that journey and I'll just fly all over the world and meet the Mark Timms of the world. And so, but anyway, up to this point, I've never met one, but apparently there are others.
Yeah, there was another Travis Johnson at my high school. So, like,
at your high school,
he was born the same day as me, a year after.
No,
a year after.
Yes,
Year
he
after.
also
Wow.
has brown hair and brown eyes, and our physical description is almost the same. So I've had people.
So there was two Carol Lees, that's my maiden name, at my high school.
Yeah.
And they would get our report cards messed up.
Oh,
she
no.
was not a good student. I was.
You got a B on your report card. Isn't that like an Asian F? And your parents would be like, what is this?
Yes. I was never allowed to get B's. I was only allowed to get A's.
Oh, and by the way, you can obviously learn more about me than my website by getting Mentor to Millions on Amazon. So the book Mentor to Millions,
Perfect.
go get it. It'll teach you a lot about business, but it'll teach you a whole lot more about life.
Yep.
So
I can vouch for that. Mark, thank you so much for being our guest today and for sending me a copy of Mentor to Millions. I'm madly in love with this book and only moderately in love with you, which let's be honest, that's a complete lie. But I thought it'd sound funny.
I'm so thankful to meet both of you guys. I'm so glad that you do what you do. I don't do this. I don't do podcasts. I don't host podcasts. So there's a special place for the two of you and the work that you do and the impact that you make in the world. And so thank you for showing up as often as you do. For the people that are listening, we admire you and we appreciate you.
Same goes with you. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
That's all for this episode of Titan Evolution Podcast. We hope this no-holds-barred conversation opened your eyes on what it takes to live a genuinely happy life according to your own terms. Now that you've treated yourself to such a refreshing discussion, you cannot listen to nonsense content anymore. Be sure not to miss an episode by subscribing to the show at TitanEvolutionPodcast.com. Don't forget to share the word so more people can be enlightened, informed, and entertained. Thank you for listening.